Another grueling summer of baseball is over. The offseason is upon us. For the many that missed the postseason, all they can do is pick up the pieces. What disasters befell these poor souls? The pain of rebuilding. You knew this was going to be a terribly long year at Camden Yards, but I don't think many people realized it would be shattering the record for most home runs given up in a season bad. Chris Davis is still as awful as ever, and the organization is in the middle of a deep clean and hard reset to rebuild the rotting foundations. As shitty as this is, I will give them credit. They've at least admitted they have a problem. Confession is always the first step on the road to recovery. I don't know if it'll work in the long run, but it needed to be done. It's going to be a long time before the Orioles are good again, but it's much better than pretending they're competitive. Some World Series title defense you boys had. Doesn't matter if you won yesterday in an age of what have you done for me lately. For Red Sox standards, this season was a disaster. The starting pitching near totally falling apart due to injuries, Chris Sale deciding to become a meatball chef, and a sudden regression for Rick Porcello. A big issue was that Boston had lacked a go-to reliever all year. They did nothing to fix it. The hitters were really good though. Steve Pearce turning into dust aside, the boppers bopped, and the key players performed as they did in the past. That's nowhere near good enough for ownership. For all his success, Dave Dombrowski had a lot of high-profile fuck-ups, and this year was icing on the cake. He was sacked not even a year after leading them to a title. Sucks, but you can't really feel bad he'll get back up on his feet somewhere. Although for Boston, I'd be very afraid. Ownership has gotten quite complacent with their winnings over the past 15 years. They've grown tired of the luxury tax and want to cut payroll to get under it again. If you read between the lines, I'd say bye-bye to Mookie Betts. That mega deal he'll want runs against such frugality with the contracts they're locked into. Once again, no one has sympathy. I'm torn on the Blue Jays. On one side, I see their incredible youth starting to emerge in their hitting core. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, among a chorus of great talents that burst onto the scene this year, leads me to have hope for the long term. On the other end, management. They are the ones responsible for drafting and developing these young stars, yes, but they're also the ones botching the values of tradable assets. Underselling Marcus Stroman, trading Josh Donaldson way too late, and a bevy of eyebrow-raising moves make me wonder if these guys are any good. It's about going to reporters and boasting about the 40 years of control you got at the deadline. Doesn't matter if those 40 years are shit, it's still more control apparently. They've got a long way to go, and to be honest, I don't have much confidence in this management team. Just do us all a favor and don't waste the youngins. It's been a sign of the White Sox the past few years. Minimal progression. I get what they're doing. I see signs of life, but it's nowhere near enough for me. It doesn't matter if Lucas Giolito becomes an ace, James McCann emerges out of nowhere, and Yohan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez start to realize their potential if you can't develop or acquire a course around them. Next year will be very crucial to this upcoming window. If certain suspects like Jimenez, Michael Kopech, and Dylan Cease stall out, it'll be yet another setback to their plans. Even in a weak AL Central, they haven't done enough to turn the needle. And it's at this point where I don't know if Rick Renteria is the right guy to lead the rebuild. We need results next time around. That's the only way we'll know for sure. On the surface, you'd be surprised that the Indians didn't make the postseason. When you look further, the reasons why are slowly revealed. Their record was buoyed by a weak division with two teams openly tanking. Injuries plagued them throughout the year, with many key players going down for long stretches of time. Do you want to know the main reason they didn't make it, though? Organizational cheapness. There's too much coulda, woulda, shoulda with this season, and it all starts with Larry Dolan. They should have kept Brantley. Losing him to the Astros created a ripple effect that Cleveland never recovered from. If Brantley's here, they don't have a hole at the outfield position. They don't trade Trevor Bauer for outfielders. They don't try to gamble on Corey Kluber and Carlos Carrasco coming back from injury. It was the perfect storm, but it could have all been prevented. Dolan isn't going to pony up for anything, though. And it may cost you Lindor. He's gone on record saying to cherish him while he's here. Has he played his last game as an Indian? He'll join Kipnis on the farewell parade if he has. Oh look, it's the team that died when Mr. I did. The hell did you do besides suck and suck more? Trade more nice players for significantly lower value than they're worth? Good, here's an undeserved extension for the GM running the rebuild into the ground. I don't care if you have a few nice pitching prospects. If you want to argue with me, all I need to say is that Dave Littlefield is a key member of the player development brass. Hope you enjoy 3 more of your old players winning a World Series on a different team. Get the fuck out of here. Whatever lack of expectations you had for the season were somehow not even met. That's what tanking and replenishing the stockpiles will do. It's unfortunate when the only highlights I have are of Jorge Soler finally figuring out Major League pitching and enjoying Whit Merrifield before he's traded, as he will be too old when the Royals are competitive again. The game may have passed him by, but Ned Yost at least gets to go out with some dignity in retirement. Perhaps with new ownership, besides the incredibly cheap David Glass, there may be some new hope for the Royals. That was until you hired Mike Matheny to manage. Did you not see how awful he was with the Cardinals? Protect those bullpen arms at all costs. I do not exaggerate when I say the Angels had the most painful season of any team in the majors. When one of your teammates not only dies in the middle of the season, but it's revealed that he got the opioids that killed him from a clubhouse employee, there's no coming back from that. You don't even have to get into all of the free agent signings that flopped or got injured. Hint, that was all of them. You don't have to mention the awful pitching staff. Twisting the knife, the guy that died, he was their best starter. Apparently, there had to be a scapegoat for this nightmare, and it turned out to be Brad Ausmus. Why? I think Ausmus is a terrible manager, but this season was in no way his fault. You could have had a fusion of Casey Stengel and Whitey Herzog managing the team and they would have failed. Now the Angels are throwing money at more free agents than Joe Madden to manage, when the Angels have much bigger issues to deal with throughout their organization. Mike Trout deserves so much better than this. Does everyone remember when they were 13-2 to start the year? Feels like a long time ago with how their season has gone. This year will be known for two things: that start and the farewells to old legends. I certainly would try to forget the 55-92 finish or the over 40 pitchers used or the constant defensive mishaps. Otherwise, I can only feel sad. Congratulations, Mariners. You have successfully wasted the career of King Felix, a true legend in his prime who never got to play in a postseason game. And now he's so worn down that he may never pitch in the majors again. Another notch to the legacy of failure. You deserve to be the only team to never make a World Series. I must say, I was surprised at how you guys started out the season. A team that had no business being in the playoff hunt with that pitching staff and a weird lineup of aging talent, unproven commodities, and good power did well. Then reality hit. The pitching was being carried by Mike Minor and Lance Lynn. The hitting tapered off after their hot start. The team had a rough skid in July. The final result is the agony of mediocrity. At least it's better than it was last year, but I can't gauge how successful this team will be moving forward. Perhaps moving into a new ballpark will help out with the pitching woes, but I'm just not seeing anything close by that will help out. Something tells me they'll be active in the offseason. They want to get out of this as soon as possible. Let's see, positives. Positives about the Marlins. Brian Anderson looks like a really good starting third baseman. Sandy Alcantara? Yeah, I'm grasping at straws. It's a tank year, so I'm not expecting much, but this felt more like punting the football better than the Dolphins. The Marlins figured that no manager can take this shit-a-thon and make it good, so Don Mattingly is extended for clubhouse continuity. Rebuilding's nice and all, but we need to start seeing some progress soon. I want you to imagine a world where the New York Mets aren't run by clowns. It would bring much relief to the tortured souls that voluntarily choose to support this moribund franchise. On paper, this team should have made the postseason. A murderer's row of starting pitching, depth throughout the lineup, young bats like Jeff McNeil and Peter Alonso budding into stars. But like most years, the Mets happened. That June and early July was nothing but pain. Endless blown leads by a bullpen that couldn't close a zipper properly. It's the main reason they didn't make it whatsoever. Another fantastically wasted season. Mickey Callaway was so awful he should have been fired 3 years ago, but once again they battled, right? One word: don't have hope. Knowing the Whoop-Ons, they'll hire an inferior manager on the cheap and be in the same situation in the future. What's that, they hired an inexperienced Carlos Beltran? Told you. Money can't buy happiness, and it apparently can't even buy a team that's over 500. Phillies, this is pathetic. All of that noise you made over the offseason to bolster the lineup just to witness a pile of rubbish masquerading as a baseball team. The problem wasn't in the hitting acquisitions. They did well when they were healthy. You guys forgot the pitching. You forgot it so much that Hector Neris was still your most reliable bullpen arm. What were your answers, praying that some stopgaps would gloriously overachieve? No wonder why you were hideous most of the time. Gabe Kapler has been fired as a result. That's good. Why are Matt Klentak and Andy McPhail still here? Why reward them for handcuffing the Phillies with this mess of a pitching staff? Let's be clear, I like Joe Girardi, but if they can't get a bullpen in order, it doesn't matter how good he can be. They'll be as shitty as Philly's pothole-infested streets. I like shitting on the Cubs. That has been proven. Even then, I cannot one-up the self-defecation the Cubbies pulled in September. You've got a huge stretch of games against divisional foes with a potential shot at the NL Central lead. You can suffer a catastrophic collapse. 9 straight losses as an end cap to a year of horrific underachieving and bullpen implosions. What you are hearing is St. Louis using your misery as an aphrodisiac. I know the term is bandied around a lot, but this year's performance was cringeworthy. It's not even like they had that tough of a schedule. Over half of those games in that losing streak were against NL pushovers. Don't give me the excuse of injuries. The Cubs were playing like shit all season long and didn't deserve a playoff spot in any way, shape, or form. Joe Madden is deservedly out of a job for about 3 weeks for this abomination, but they should have canned Epstein as well. He is just as responsible for this mess. When your best pitcher is Yu Darvish, you need to soul search. And from hiring David Ross to manage and relive the 2016 run, they aren't. They just want to bask in the glory years without evolving from them or learning from their mistakes. Word of advice, Cubs fans? Cherish that World Series title. With the way your team is being run, it's going to be another long drought. Hey, Cincy, glad you could stop by for the meeting. Take a seat, let's have a little chat. You seriously think you can compete? There is absolutely nothing over the past few months that has shown me that you are ready to take the next step. Great, you have pieces. You have some nice ones, in fact. I don't see anything resembling a puzzle. No, don't give me Aristides Aquino's run was fueled by an insane start that cooled immensely and probably won't repeat. Trevor Bauer? It'd be nice, but he played like shit on the other side of Ohio. Who else am I supposed to trust? Raisel Iglesias? The closer who couldn't close a closet? That punk of a manager you have? I know ownership is desperate to compete, but I'm not seeing it. If you throw enough of your future away in the offseason, you might get over 500, but that's it. You're not ready. Period. Stop pretending you are. Have you finally learned your lesson yet, Pirates? About how straddling the line between no vision and fruitless mediocrity will lead you nowhere? I honestly hope it did. You knew deep down in your heart that this team wasn't good. All I need to go by is their actions. They cut corners. They cheaped out on a lot of pieces hoping depth and insane luck would lead the way. A monumental July collapse would change all of that. Now heads have to roll. You fired all three of those arrogant buffoons that should have been gone 3 years ago? Good. It may reek of serious disorganization the way it was done, but you did the right thing, Pirates. I'm still a cynical bastard regarding them, but at least it's needed change. All we can do is wait and see what happens. I need to make another video on them, don't I? Once again, Arizona is a very weird team. After attempts to dismantle the core, including a blockbuster trade of Zach Greinke, the expectation is to fall apart and lose to begin a rebuild. Just like the Diamondbacks, expectations are usually subverted. They go on a torrid pace led by the emergence of Ketel Marte and a sneakily goodbye of Zach Gallen. The D-backs missed the playoffs again, but are now at another crossroad on top of the dilemma they've been facing for years. Do they keep dismantling like they've been doing, or do they truly have the pieces to compete with the new core? It's going to be an offseason of incredible introspection, and I hope they make the right choice. Can this team truly beat the Dodgers for the division? I don't envy them for the decisions they'll have to make. Jesus Christ, boys! You've come into the office complaining about a minor cough when I'm seeing a full-blown case of tuberculosis. Like most years that the Rockies are terrible, it's one thing that's glaring as the main cause. Pitching, and add more pitching to those woes. I wouldn't harp on it that much, but when your Cy Young candidate regresses into AAA fodder and every expensive bullpen arm burns money in front of your face, there's a problem, no? This happened away from Coors Field as well. This is total failure. This needs a serious re-examining of the team's future. To be honest, their pitching is so utterly fucked that it could take years to undo the damage. Now, I'm not saying trade Arenado. He has more value to the team than a trade could bring, but seriously? They gotta trade Blackmon. Aging player seeing his defense decline to a corner outfield spot? That doesn't fit on a rebuilding team. They won't, though. They'll pretend everything is fine and cheap out for depth like always. Because that's worked out before. At least you're not Colorado, I guess. If you're a Padres fan, I get why you're overly confident towards this team's future. Fernando Tatis Jr. has the feel of a bona fide game changer for the organization. Chris Paddock, a potential ace in the making. Kirby Yates was one of the most underrated relievers in baseball this season. But even then, like the White Sox, the team stalled out again. All that needs to be said is that Eric Hosmer's year better have been an aberration, or else that contract might become awful. Machado at least was passable, but what truly worries me is the impatience of ownership. Yes, Andy Green was ineffective as a manager and deserved to be fired, but he's all but demanding the team win more next year no matter the cost. The Padres are going to fuck up their own rebuild, aren't they? If Fowler lives up to his word and sells, who buys the team? Another generic cheap ass? You have potential. Don't waste it. Normally, a team that has locked into terrible contracts, a bleak short-term future, and the fruitless prolonging of a window would be worthy of scorn. In this case, though, I'm not gonna bash him. This was more of a symbolic year for the Giants. It was all but the final goodbye to a dynasty. With Bochy's retirement and key players leaving, a new age will be forced to begin, but they at least have a footnote to end on. Bruce ended up getting his 2000th win as a manager, one of the few things I truly wanted to happen this year. With this moment, San Francisco is closure. And that's a lot more than I can say for most. Yes, the farm system is incredibly bleak, the best performers were unproven and playing way over their heads, and the inevitable rebuild will be long and brutal as longtime faces leave. But for one moment, that can all be forgotten. Go in peace, Giants. May you be remembered in the halls of Cooperstown and beyond. You hired Gabe Kapler? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Pretty well touched out to deep center. Zimmer back. See you grand slam later. His second as an at.